Section 3. How to deal with others. Chapter 70 is for therapeutic communication. What are therapeutic communication techniques? This chapter will outline some of the most common techniques of therapeutic communication. These include laughter, silence, open-ended questions, and reflection. Hopefully, you'll find one that works well for you or a loved one. If not, I'll explain a few of my favorites. It is written to provide information that you can use to help you make others feel more comfortable. Humor and laughter. The use of humor in therapy has been shown to increase the client's self-esteem and help them view themselves as funny. It also helps them entertain others when talking about serious issues. The use of humor in therapy is in line with the cognitive approach, which argues that humor fosters a shift in perspective. Moreover, laughter is a good communication tool for clients, enabling them to open up emotionally, express feelings, and improve relationships. Laughter is a universally well-tolerated communication technique. The duration of laughter sessions should be appropriate. A few minutes of laughing out loud is sufficient, but prolonged laughter is preferred. The laughter must be accompanied by abdominal pressure and appropriate breathing. The sessions should last for at least 3 minutes. Aside from laughter sessions, participants can also experience silent laughter and passive laughter, both of which are effective. The most common side effects of laughter are mild to moderate, and no serious conditions should prevent their use. One important aspect of laughter sessions is breathing. Exhalation should be controlled while laughing, while inspiration should be sustained on the diaphragmatic breathing. It is also important to use the correct breathing patterns, which are diaphragmatic and nasal. The laughter technique requires practice to help participants improve their breathing patterns. Laughter exercises should also include exercises that encourage group participation and enhance laughter contagion. You can also incorporate exercises that stimulate the larynx. Silence. Therapists often use silence during therapy sessions. Silence allows the client to process an issue without being distracted by their own thoughts. The absence of sound allows the client to reflect, allowing the clinician to better understand what is bothering the client. Unlike other forms of therapy, silence isn't threatening or uncomfortable. It provides a safe space for reflection and can often be extremely effective. If silence is used correctly, silence can be a powerful therapeutic tool. A second use of silence is as a therapeutic communication technique. The client may be feeling overwhelmed or distracted by the other person, which can compromise the quality of the relationship. As a result, nursing staff should remain as objective and professional as possible. Patients may have strong feelings and may not feel comfortable talking about the topic at hand. Instead, stay focused on the subject at hand to reduce the risk of distractions that impair therapeutic communication. If the patient is uncomfortable with silence, try to use it gently. For example, ask them to draw a timeline or list specific events in their lives. Ask them if there is someone else they would like to involve in the process. Ask them if their beliefs or culture may affect the treatment. When planning the care, incorporate the client's preferences. Silence may also be helpful when therapists want to make a point to explore an issue from a different perspective. Open-ended questions. One of the most effective methods of opening a dialogue is by asking open-ended questions. These questions should not be leading or judgmental, and they should also be non-probing. When using open-ended questions, it is helpful to avoid asking a few at one time. During your conversation, try to ask about the person's perceptions of the problem. Asking them about their feelings is also a good idea. Another form of open-ended question is the laundry list question. This technique works well if the client has difficulty putting their feelings into words. It is important to avoid questions that begin with why, since these questions put the client on the defensive and may even lead to defensiveness. The best approach to using open-ended questions is to use them sparingly to develop rapport. Listed below are a few examples of questions you can use. Using open-ended questions encourages the client to elaborate and give the listener an opportunity to understand the underlying feelings. These questions can help you to begin a conversation with a client or a family member. They also enable the client to speak about health concerns in their own words. They help in developing a strong therapeutic relationship. A trained nurse will know when to use open-ended questions in a conversation and when to use closed questions. Reflection. Reflection is a positive form of therapy. It involves asking a patient what they think should be done in a situation. In doing so, the healthcare provider helps patients take responsibility for their decisions. In addition, reflection encourages patients to be more self-aware and accountable for their health. This technique is effective in a variety of contexts. Let's look at 2 examples of its use in therapy. One type of reflective listening involves summarizing and reframing what the other person says. It helps clarify expectations and deal with the issue at hand. During the listening process, a person is guided by their own physiology, eye movement, posture, and body language. A person may feel most comfortable at a certain distance from another person when they are able to reflect on their own body language. Another type of reflective listening involves examining the content, or larger segments of what is being said, depending on the nature of the problem. People may choose to talk about difficult issues in silence. Another type of reflective communication involves asking questions about the patient's feelings. After the patient finishes answering the question, the nurse can rephrase the statement in a question. This creates an opportunity for further education by relating the patient's feelings to the patient's needs. When nurses ask a patient for an opinion, they also rephrase what they think the patient said in their own words. In doing so, they allow the patient to express their own views without assuming that they are correct. Showing empathy. Among the many essential nursing skills, showing empathy is one of the most crucial. It lets the patient know that their feelings are valued and accepted. This can be done by listening and responding to the patient's concerns. Below are some examples of how to show empathy in therapeutic communication. Listed below are examples of how to show empathy. They may surprise you. Listed below are 3 examples of how to show empathy to your patient. In showing empathy, the therapist offers something that is similar to the patient. For example, if the therapist has personal experience with the patient's condition, this may make the patient feel less isolated. For example, the patient may describe a problem sleeping. The nurse responds by offering an upshot formulation of the patient's utterance. This technique has been identified as a vehicle for empathetic responses. As a healthcare professional, showing empathy is essential for effective communication. This process is important for effective assessment of a patient's true needs and providing tailor-made care. This goal can be reached only through developing empathetic skills. The following examples illustrate how to show empathy in therapeutic communication. Responding to an important cue. As a nurse, it is crucial to use a variety of therapeutic communication techniques to facilitate interaction, depending on the client's ability to communicate verbally and the intent of the interaction. You can select techniques that will enhance communication while maintaining the client's dignity. Avoid using non-therapeutic communication techniques, such as cutting off the client's communication and assuming that the patient is incapable of expressing himself verbally. Conflict management and nonverbal conflict resolution. There are many types of conflict resolution. For example, negotiation is a type of conflict resolution. Negotiation is a discussion between 2 or more parties with the goal of coming to an agreement. These strategies are proven to be extremely helpful in a wide variety of situations. By following these tips, you'll be well on your way to peaceful resolution. Negotiation. In the process of negotiation, parties may come to a mutual agreement. During this process, they must define their goals and objectives. They also must plan the approach to reach that goal. During the negotiation, the parties should determine the most important issues, anticipate the other party's tactics, and consider the interests of each. This process will be more effective if the parties are prepared beforehand. If they prepare well, they can achieve a mutually beneficial agreement. The first phase of the negotiation process involves setting the starting points, objectives, and understanding of the conflict. Each party must carefully examine the reasoning and motivation of the other party. During this phase, it is important to assess the likelihood of a positive outcome. Each party should also enter the meeting with clear expectations of the negotiation process. The parties should maintain a balance between firmness and cooperation. They should avoid confrontation. They should also use the right strategy to avoid misunderstandings and avoid escalating the conflict. As the negotiation process unfolds, it is important to consider the goals and objectives of both parties. The outcome of the negotiation will depend on the way in which each party perceives the situation. By making frequent summaries and asking questions, both parties can better understand each other's needs and wants. During the process, they should focus on possible solutions for mutual benefits. This strategy should also be flexible, which is necessary if they are to achieve a goal that is mutually beneficial. Collaboration. Conflict management styles differ by type. Collaborative styles involve seeking an acceptable, cooperative solution. In collaborating, all parties are encouraged to express their views without causing hostility. They also must maintain a non-threatening atmosphere while discussing potential solutions. They seek to find a solution that incorporates everyone's feedback and is mutually agreeable. If collaboration does not succeed, a new method may need to be explored. Collaboration style is best suited for situations where more than one party wants to resolve the conflict. Compared to the 5 classic conflict resolution methods, collaborative approaches are more effective in many situations. Collaboration involves dialogue and mutual understanding to help identify the issues and determine a common solution. This process allows the participants to clarify their positions and study existing facts while not reducing the quality of the cause of conflict. It has been used in a wide variety of settings, from personal conflicts to crises affecting megaprojects. Although conflict resolution methods include mediation and arbitration, collaboration is most effective for improving business relationships and processes. The benefits of collaboration include an increased likelihood of win-win solutions. Collaboration transforms conflict into teamwork. Listed below are some benefits of using this approach, and don't be afraid to use it if it fits your situation. So, go forth and make the most of your collaboration in conflict resolution. You will be glad you did. Honesty. In conflict resolution, honesty is a core component. Throughout the process, individuals must be truthful about their feelings and their motivations. The more candid individuals and groups are, the faster progress can be made. In addition, an honest conversation reveals opportunities for improvement, thereby improving relationships and reducing conflict. However, this approach may not be suitable for every situation. For these reasons, it is recommended that a conflict resolution professional provide training in this area. To be effective, a mediator must explain to the parties and their counsel their ethical duties. The mediator can only be as honest as the parties. If the mediator suspects a conflicting party is in violation of an ethical rule, he or she can discuss it with an attorney privately. Such discussions typically cure the problem. It is essential that both parties understand the importance of honesty in conflict resolution. It is also important that mediators remain impartial and respectful of all parties. People who are too polite often end up deceiving others. They exaggerate their claims or withhold information. This is not an accident. The person will have to make up for it if it was really true. In such cases, honesty will be more important than social skills. So, if you find it difficult to be honest, don't be afraid to ask for help. There are many resources available to help you become more honest. Nonverbal communication. Understanding nonverbal communication is crucial to successful mediation. There are many nonverbals that can reveal conflicting emotions and contradictory ideas beyond verbal communication. This information can help identify feelings involved in conflict and legitimize them. Learn to identify these elements before mediation and use them to your advantage. Here are some tips for successful conflict resolution through nonverbals. You may also find these techniques useful when assisting a mediation session. Cultural differences are a key aspect of nonverbal communication. In most cases, we learn about this phenomenon through imitation and observation. However, the meaning of these gestures vary from culture to culture. Therefore, understanding and using these techniques correctly can be extremely beneficial for conflict resolution. With the growing popularity of social media, awareness of nonverbals has become essential for understanding and relating to people from different cultures. For example, cultural differences can influence nonverbal communication preferences. Nonverbal communication conveys 93% of the message. As mediators, it is essential to know which gestures are recurrent and how to read them. Knowing recurrent gestures and body language can help you to communicate better with your clients and avoid conflict. However, it is important to note that these gestures and messages are not the only ones that communicate meaning. This means that knowing which gestures are important to read and which ones are not will help you to reach a resolution. Taking a step back. In conflict resolution, the first step is to establish space and time by listening. People don't always respond to your input, but the process of listening is an important step in resolving conflicts. When you listen with compassion, you will demonstrate that you value your relationship and your willingness to work out a solution. You may even want to paraphrase what was said to clarify what was being said. Taking a step back when conflict is in the works will demonstrate your commitment to the relationship and to compromise. It is very important to remember that people want to be heard and will not respond to you if you just pretend to listen. Clarifying expectations. When you approach a conflict resolution meeting, you must set the stage for success. This involves organizing your thoughts and conveying a willingness to listen and cooperate with the other party. Focus on the issue, idea, or collaboration at hand, and ask questions to clarify any misunderstandings. After you clarify your expectations, brainstorm solutions for the conflict. Try to think from the perspectives of all involved, and make sure to offer verbal and nonverbal feedback. First, assess how the other party perceives the other's power, credibility, and capability. Your goal is to achieve peace and avoid unnecessary escalation. While you may intend to avoid a confrontation, it is important to maintain credibility and avoid power questions that could weaken the credibility of both sides. Likewise, the image of power you foster will influence the nature of future conflicts. By ensuring that your promises and sanctions are consistent with your demands, you will be setting the stage for peaceful conflict resolution. In a project, stakeholders often have different expectations, and there's a chance the two sides may have conflicting objectives. However, the cause of these differences may not be immediately evident. In such cases, you will need to seek the support of senior management to clarify business objectives and consolidate an approach. You'll also need to consider various forms of communication to make sure that you've reached agreement and kept it. It's important to identify and resolve conflicts early in the project, because unresolved conflict can derail even the most strategic project. Chapter 8. H is for hold boundaries, setting limits. Setting boundaries and setting limits in relationships. Healthy boundaries are rooted in clear communication. They protect your mental and emotional health, create trust in relationships, and prevent abuse. Don't be afraid to use them. Hopefully these tips will help you establish your own boundaries and limit your exposure to abuse, whether physical, verbal, or emotional. Healthy boundaries are rooted in clear communication. Healthy boundaries are like property lines, fences, or buoys that mark the boundary in your relationship. When you set them, they are more likely to be respected and upheld by all parties. If you don't have boundaries, you may find yourself constantly in the middle of conflict or at the mercy of others. Instead of protecting yourself, you may be spending your time, energy, and emotional resources trying to do what others want. Without clear communication, you may find yourself frustrated and feeling depressed. When setting boundaries, you should always remember that sometimes people will cross them, and you should be firm and honor your own needs. When boundaries are crossed, you should set consequences for each party. Moreover, you should try not to make others feel bad if they do something that goes against your values. To make your boundaries clear, you can make a list of values that you hold dear. Once you've made this list, narrow it down to 5 values and stick to it. If your boundaries are too rigid or porous, it will be difficult to identify your needs and those of others. If your boundaries are too rigid, you'll find it difficult to express your true needs because you're afraid of rejection. You might even avoid certain people because you don't feel comfortable with them. In addition, you may be overly sensitive and take on other people's emotions. You'll end up with an unmet need and a difficult time expressing yourself in a clear manner. Setting and maintaining healthy boundaries is often a difficult task. It can be intimidating, but remember that boundaries are the measure of success in a relationship. When boundaries are set and followed, they will lead to more connection and fewer resentment and distancing. It might also save a relationship. There's nothing worse than having a relationship shattered by conflict. You can save your relationship by setting healthy boundaries. They protect your mental and emotional well-being. The first step in protecting your mental and emotional well-being is setting clear and reasonable boundaries. By asking yourself hard questions, you can discover the triggers and emotional demands you have in life. For example, if you're constantly putting other people's needs above your own, setting limits will help you maintain your mental and emotional wellness. If you don't set limits and boundaries, you might end up accepting more than you can handle or taking on other people's mental burdens. While you might be tempted to extend an invitation to coworkers to hold meetings, you need to set limits and boundaries for yourself. Setting boundaries means defining your own limits and avoiding those of others. It protects your self-esteem and emotional well-being, and you may even find that you no longer feel like socializing with certain people. By setting limits, you'll protect yourself from feelings of resentment, anger, and burnout. Another important element of protecting your mental and emotional well-being is setting boundaries. Setting limits and boundaries protect you from uncomfortable situations, like getting pushed to your limits by someone you don't know. These limits can be set in terms of time, space, and people, but they must be respected and adhered to. This is why defining your limits and boundaries is so crucial. You should always make sure that everyone respects them, too. By having healthy boundaries, you'll be able to feel better. By having boundaries with those who bring you happiness, you can protect your mental and emotional well-being. People who make you feel happy and empowered are the ones you should protect your mental and emotional well-being. The person who makes you feel miserable can undermine your efforts at healing. By creating boundaries, you'll be able to live your life in peace. You may need to protect your boundaries if someone you care about has been misbehaving. People who love you may have slipped over these boundaries or inadvertently violated them. In such a case, you'll need to explain your boundaries and limits to them, which will help them respect you in the future. By setting boundaries and limits, you'll protect your mental and emotional well-being by avoiding situations where you're triggered. They create trust in relationships. As the beginnings of a relationship progress, setting boundaries and limits is an important part of maintaining trust and stability. A healthy relationship requires both parties to be clear about what is acceptable and what is not. You may have a difficult time defining your boundaries, but it is vital to be aware of the needs of both parties. For example, you might not want to have unexpected visitors. You may want to decline an offer from a friend to help you move. Similarly, you may not want your partner to be disrespectful to you. According to psychologist Brené Brown, people with strong boundaries are more compassionate. When they set limits, they are not mean, they are kind, and they express clear expectations. Setting boundaries is similar to protecting yourself from abuse, and it is crucial to have clear limits. By demonstrating respect for the needs and feelings of others, you can ensure that your relationships will be a safe and healthy place to be. A healthy relationship is one where both partners take responsibility for their own words and actions. Setting limits will help you to set boundaries in the right way and honor your partner's comfort level. In contrast, if you feel your partner is allowing you to flirt with their coworkers, you should consider setting limits in your relationship. In this way, you'll avoid getting hurt and can build trust. Then, your partner will respect your decisions and will respect yours. While defining your limits and boundaries is essential to a healthy relationship, it can be difficult to do in the initial stages of a relationship. A healthy relationship requires strong boundaries and respect from both partners. Setting boundaries and limits ensure that each party is receiving what they need and feeling respected. It also protects each party's sense of self. While setting limits is a difficult task, it will pay off in the long run. When you set limits and boundaries for yourself and for others, you're creating an environment where you can be yourself and be a better partner. Setting boundaries will help you feel more secure in your relationship and reduce resentment and conflict. When your partner respects your boundaries, you'll feel better about yourself and your partner. And as long as you're clear about your expectations, you'll have a strong foundation for future trust. They protect you from abuse. To protect yourself from abuse, it's important to set healthy boundaries. You don't have to be a strict, rigid perfectionist, but you should be aware of the bare minimum that you can expect from others. In other words, decide what your basic rights are and stick to them. These are not nice gestures, but rules you should follow in your interactions with others. Abusers will not change their behavior based on your feelings, so it's important to know your rights and boundaries. Aside from emotional and physical abuse, setting boundaries and limits can also protect you from cyberbullying. Cyberbullying, online dating, and online scams are all forms of cyberbullying. These predatory behaviors can cause your boundaries to become weaker and more difficult to enforce. If you suspect you're being abused, you should immediately seek professional help. A safety plan will help you determine whether you need to establish boundaries and limits to protect yourself from harm. Once you've set limits and boundaries, you can start developing your support system. Eliminate toxic people from your life. These people are out to manipulate, abuse, or control you. It's easier to say no than to accept someone's requests, but the feeling of safety will be invaluable. Besides, you'll be able to trust yourself more and feel more confident when you set limits. If you want to live a happy life, you should have a support system around you. By setting limits, you can resist controlling behaviors and protect your personal safety. An abusive partner may use threats, intimidation, or manipulation to control you, and may strike out at you for stepping out of line. But it's important to remember that boundaries and limits are not set in stone. They can change over time. You should choose an appropriate response when they are violated. If you do decide to implement new boundaries, it's important to form a safety plan. Assertiveness and dealing with people. This chapter will give you the characteristics of assertive people and how to be more assertive. I hope it will help you become a more assertive person. The lessons I learned have proven to be useful in my life and will help you become a more assertive person too. If you aren't an assertive person, it's time to change that. Lessons learned from therapists. Assertiveness can be a three-legged stool. To sit on the stool, you must have a clear understanding of your needs. Assert yourself when necessary, and make your needs understood. As assertive, you will not accept the responsibility of how other people react to your request. As assertive, you will recognize your worth and speak up when necessary. And remember that you can be assertive without being rude. Assertiveness is a skill that can be honed and improved with practice. The key to assertiveness is balance. Neither too much nor too little force is appropriate. It's important to make sure that both parties' needs are met, and no one feels like they're getting the short end of the stick. Assertiveness training is an important step in enhancing a person's self-esteem and dealing with others. Assertiveness training involves learning how to be strong in any situation. In rejection therapy, you learn to assert yourself. Therapy can teach you how to become assertive, and books can help you learn how to be strong. In particular, I recommend the book Assertiveness, a self-help guide to success by Susan Potts. This book is excellent for those who are nervous about expressing their needs. In the process of learning how to be more assertive, a therapist teaches you how to reduce your anxiety and worries. Learning how to reduce your anxiety and worry will lead to more confidence and less worry. In the long run, being assertive is a great way to increase your ability to express yourself and deal with people in a productive way. It is not easy, but it's possible to develop new skills and become more effective. Assertiveness training focuses on verbal and nonverbal behaviors. Assertiveness involves expressing one's needs and opinions without being aggressive. Being assertive is important because it shows that a person is aware of others' rights. Also, it gives the message the best chance of being heard and understood. If a person is passive, it loses its effect and their message gets lost in translation. Assertiveness training teaches you how to effectively communicate your point of view and influence others. Being assertive means you take charge of your situation, have confidence, and are fair and balanced. The key to assertiveness is to recognize when it's appropriate to speak your mind and to remain assertive at all times. Ultimately, you must make sure that your words do not violate other people's rights. Characteristics of assertive people. Assertive people do not force their connections. They are strong-minded and do not get motivated by the benefits of relationships. They express their feelings without being condescending or abrasive. Assertive people do not use their voice to manipulate others or point out their insecurities. In short, they are unreservedly honest and direct with others. Often, they do not reciprocate aggression, but they can be very calm. Assertive people do not degrade others' ideas. They are confident and do not shy away from constructive arguments. They also do not lie or hide their true self in relationships. They choose their friends carefully and are rarely influenced by negative people. When a relationship is at stake, they choose their friends wisely. In this way, they can avoid the problems that can result from lying. Hence, they make friends who share their values. Assertiveness means that a person expresses their needs and emotions without blaming others or acting passively. It also means that they don't apologize for expressing their feelings, asking for favors, or expressing their negative feelings. Assertiveness allows people to express themselves without being apologetic and maintain control of their feelings. Furthermore, assertive people don't hesitate to express their point of view and admit their mistakes. Assertive people understand the importance of good relationships. They do not apologize for disagreeing with others. Assertive people know that it is impossible to satisfy everyone's expectations. Assertive people also understand that compromising involves giving something up or accepting the opposite. However, not everyone is good at compromise. However, assertive people often compromise and work out solutions rather than argue, thus preventing conflicts and avoiding unpleasant confrontation. Being assertive is important because it can protect you from social predators. It also protects you from negative thoughts when under stress. When you become assertive, your confidence grows and you won't feel guilty or depressed. Assertiveness also allows you to get your point across without being a doormat. And as an added bonus, people around you will admire your confidence and self-assurance. Assertive people have strong boundaries. They know when to set boundaries and when to stand their ground. Assertive people also know how to listen and balance their emotions. Assertive people are also open-minded and don't judge people on appearances. Instead, they seek to understand the character and feelings of others. Assertive people are able to separate thoughts and feelings and to recognize the triggers that make them react negatively. Ways to become more assertive. One of the most important skills in a leader is being assertive. This is because assertiveness enhances the quality of your interpersonal relationships, your performance, and your confidence. Start with small tasks. You might be able to get what you want by asking a person a question. Then, once you are comfortable with asking for something, try saying it. People often misinterpret assertiveness as aggression. Also, be sure to listen to the other person's point of view and avoid making a personal attack on them. By being assertive, you'll avoid the backlash and will also be more effective in difficult situations. Develop your self-confidence. Assertiveness comes from feeling good about yourself. It's a skill that you can develop over time. Think about your goals and learn about who you are and what you stand for. Thinking about your values and goals will increase your self-confidence. Eventually, you'll find that you're more assertive than you thought possible. And the confidence that comes with self-knowledge is one of the best ways to become more assertive when dealing with people. While demonstrating your assertiveness won't make you a more effective communicator, it will help you develop stronger relationships and create win-win situations with others. Having the confidence to discuss different points of view is also beneficial at work. It will give you the confidence to approach your boss head-on and express your point of view. It will also help you make better decisions, which will ultimately improve your performance. Assertiveness does not come easily. Assertiveness takes time and practice, and may require a formal training program or counseling. If you are an aggressive person, it may take more than just some small exercises to become more assertive. Assertiveness helps you express your feelings more clearly and get what you want. It's the Goldilocks of human relationships. So, try to be more assertive. Being assertive is an important skill for any person. Assertiveness is an excellent way to manage yourself and situations. Assertiveness is a good way to communicate your needs without offending other people. Assertiveness means knowing your own needs and respecting others. You should learn how to balance your desires with your feelings and the rights of others. It's important to learn how to be assertive without coming across as too aggressive. How to negotiate with people. People who can negotiate are good at dealing with difficult people. This part of the chapter is filled with tips on listening and making a first offer. Using concrete numbers instead of a range and knowing your worth are also important. Learn how to make a good first impression and make the most of every negotiation. And remember that it takes practice. Listening. Active listening is key in negotiating with people. This skill is vital in a variety of scenarios, from a tense confrontation to a dispute. For example, a customer might be angry because your product was late, which ate into your profits. While you should apologize for the inconvenience, making concessions after the fact is tough. Rather than focusing on past problems, look for hidden satisfiers and offer these. In a negotiation, your body language should demonstrate that you're listening. Maintain steady eye contact and leave your arms uncrossed. The best way to demonstrate interest in what the other person is saying is to pause for a moment and repeat the information you've heard back to the other party. By doing so, you'll encourage them to talk more. You'll also learn a lot about the negotiation process if the other person shows interest in your words. You should also avoid interrupting. Interrupting someone will make them feel like you're not listening. Active listening skills are vital to the negotiation process. Asking questions allows people to articulate their positions and confirm facts. By asking why questions, you can build trust, resilience, and customer satisfaction. Even small concessions can build customer satisfaction and confirm your role as the best supplier. You can then move on to other areas of the negotiations. It is possible to achieve success if you use these 3 important skills. Take the time to listen carefully to the other party's needs. When negotiating with people, you can get the upper hand by understanding their point of view. Moreover, you can tailor your responses and reactions based on the information you have learned from the other party. Active listening involves ensuring that you pay attention to every word uttered by the other party. You must listen to what the other party is saying and follow the other person's lead and clarify your own thoughts and feelings. The goal of active listening is to build trust. When people trust you, they will be more likely to listen to you and give you the best deal. You can also use this technique to win over other people. Making a first offer. The process of negotiating can be facilitated when you consider alternative values, such as a target price and your ideal outcome. By focusing on the target price and other desired outcomes, you will be able to make a more aggressive first offer and reach a profitable agreement. The goal of a first offer is to anchor the negotiating strategy. If you don't go first, you may end up missing out on more than you originally asked for. On the other hand, if you make an offer first, you may increase your chances of coming to a satisfactory agreement. However, making a first offer should be your last resort in most situations. If you've made an offer that was too low or too high, you may not have gotten the best deal. The first offer is a signal of the potential agreement. The objective is to set a boundary in a situation so that the recipient doesn't try to talk you up from the original demand. When buyers and sellers make an initial offer of equal value, they usually split the difference. This creates an incentive to make extreme demands. However, a first offer that is too low will result in a failure in the negotiation. There are a number of factors that contribute to the success of a first offer. One of these is anchoring, which is a cognitive bias involving human judgment. The first piece of information a person receives is more likely to anchor subsequent evaluations and bias the final decision. The anchoring effect of the first offer also allows the person to see how generous or how low they can go. If the offer is too low, they won't take it seriously. The first offer should be aggressive, but not absurdly so. It should give the other party an idea of the bargaining zone and range of possible agreements. If the opening offer is absurdly high, it will likely annoy the receiver and cause them to walk away from the negotiation. It is better to be aggressive and take the initiative early on, so the other party can adjust their offer if necessary. The first offer is a critical element in a successful negotiation, so make sure you use it correctly. Knowing your worth. One of the most important things to know when negotiating with others is your own worth. Even if you have been in one organization for years, you must know your worth so that you can maximize your earning potential. You also must understand the market value of your skills and expertise. Many people do not understand how much they are worth, and that's where knowing your worth comes in. However, this basic principle applies to any situation and can make or break any negotiation. First of all, you should understand what you are worth so that you can effectively negotiate for better compensation. While it can be intimidating to negotiate for a higher salary, it can also help you feel comfortable with the process. While some people fear negotiation, it can make a world of difference. Knowing what you're worth in the current marketplace can give you the confidence you need to speak up and demand what you deserve. Whether you're negotiating with your boss or an employer, knowing your worth can help you land a better salary. People who ask for a 10% increase are more likely to get what they deserve. Moreover, it's important to remember that companies expect salary negotiations and budget for it, so it's worth taking the time to ask for what you deserve. If you don't feel confident enough to negotiate for what you're worth, you're likely to settle for a lower quality deal. In other situations, you may not be able to negotiate for a higher salary. However, if you know your worth and have a reasonable expectation about what you deserve, it will make the process more enjoyable. Assuming that you're in a position to negotiate, you may be surprised by how much other people are willing to pay. By learning about the market, you'll be able to make an informed decision. Negotiating does not just apply in the workplace to get higher compensation for what you are worth. Learning the skill of negotiating applies to all aspects of life, whether it be with family or friends, and even strangers. Being able to get to a mutually beneficial agreement will create healthy relationships overall and help you deal with people anywhere you go. CH9, I is for intentional silence. Let other people do most of the talking. Intentional silence, how to create a home environment that fosters personal growth. Practicing intentional silence can help you to be more productive and less stressed. This chapter outlines ways to practice intentional silence and how you can implement it in your life. This chapter will help you create a home or work environment that fosters your own personal growth. Intermittent silence. Intentional silence is a meditation technique in which people take a break from daily distractions. Intermittent silence can be beneficial for many reasons. In addition to enabling you to unplug, it allows you to practice nonverbal communication. When you experience moments of silence, you can see things clearly, reducing the possibility of making hasty judgments. It can also improve your resilience. You can use the opportunity to engage in conversations with yourself and others about your resilience. Using intermittent silent meditation can improve your quality of life. It can help you deal with emotional storms, periods when you feel extremely negative emotions. Because it requires you to pay attention to your thoughts, it can help you develop strategies for handling intense emotions. However, you may have to try intermittent silence for a while before it takes hold of your life. Luckily, you don't need to be a Zen master to reap its benefits. The habit of silence is beneficial for both introverts and extroverts. The practice of intermittent silence requires only 10 minutes a day. This discipline opens doors that would otherwise remain closed. You can experiment with new ideas and practices while observing your own inner conversations. You can also develop your intuition and sense of self. Intentional silence is one of the most effective ways to cultivate this habit. And it doesn't matter what your religious background is, it's applicable to anyone. Let other people do most of the talking. If you want to make others feel comfortable and appreciated in the company of others, let other people do most of the talking. Often, you may have to interrupt a person because they are talking, or if you're interrupted, you'll seem to be taking up too much time. When you interrupt, the other person will feel that you're more important than they are, and they will be less likely to want to spend the rest of the meeting listening to what they have to say. If you tend to be a fast thinker, force yourself to pause. Using a pause does not mean that you're interrupting someone, but rather it allows you to understand what they're saying. Listening. Effective listening begins with the ear and the brain centers associated with communication. It requires active attention and feedback to fully process the speaker's message. Too often, we jump from hearing to understanding to responding without a clearer understanding of the content. This results in a truncated interpretation and evaluation of the speaker's message. By putting yourself in their shoes, you can better understand and appreciate what they have to say. Good listeners invite the other person to do the talking. When meeting someone for the first time, treat them as the most important person in the room. Take the time to learn about them and their interests. Don't make assumptions. Always make eye contact and ask questions to clarify. Then, make sure you don't miss any important information. Listening is a two-way street, so it's crucial to avoid assumptions. Effective listening involves maintaining silence when other people are speaking. Instead of interrupting, ask questions to ensure that you're fully processing what the speaker is saying. When the speaker concludes, say something confirming the speaker's words or stating your disagreement. In addition, don't be afraid to add your own thoughts. You don't have to be the expert, but it does help to add your own perspective. Body language. Using body language to communicate is not just about making eye contact. It's about being aware of what other people are saying and responding to them with your body language. You've probably heard that body language makes a lot of difference in the way you communicate with people, but what is it exactly? Well, here are a few guidelines for communicating effectively in meetings. Use your body to express your feelings. While words are an important part of communication, they can also be used to contradict each other. When you say something and your body language doesn't match, it's difficult for people to understand your message. Gritting your teeth and talking with your eyes closed are two of the most common examples of this. Using your body language to express your feelings is an excellent way to build stronger relationships. When you want to indicate approval or yes, the most common gesture is the head nod. This gesture can be used in a variety of situations and can be as subtle as a simple head tilt. Head nods can be used to signal whether you approve or disapprove of a person and can be done from either side. It's also important to pay attention to the distance between the two of you, as your physical distance can give you clues about how the other person feels. Interrupters. Interrupters interrupt others all the time. Oftentimes, it's not that they're intentionally trying to be disruptive, but they're simply unable to listen. Some people interrupt to show their control or authority, while others simply don't have time to listen. No matter the reason, it's always best to avoid interrupters and let others do the talking. Here are some strategies for dealing with interrupters. The most common type of interruption is power interruption. The person interrupting you uses their voice to direct others' attention to another topic. Their intent is often to gain attention and power by interrupting your speech. They are usually unintentionally condescending and don't consider the person interrupting them as a partner or friend. If you're the one being interrupted, you can change your communication style to avoid becoming an interloper. Some people are born interrupters. This behavior can be attributed to cultural or family backgrounds. Others may simply be impatient and wish to take control of a conversation. Still others may be born with a tendency to interrupt. Some people think it's funny or interesting to interrupt other people while they talk. Regardless of the cause, you're likely to end up annoying others with your constant interruptions. An effective way to deal with an interruption is to use reflective listening. You can also try to lower your voice to disarm the person who is interrupting you. You can even use your hand to signal to them that you're going to finish speaking. This way, you'll be able to make your point without being interrupted. If you're not able to stop an interruption, you can simply go back to the main point. Laughter. While laughter may be a rare emotional vocalization, it is crucial to understand how it is generated. Laughter can help to de-escalate negative experiences and play a key role in both short and long-term affective states in relationships and interactions. Understanding the neural mechanisms that generate laughter can help to improve our understanding of human emotions and behavior. Using humor is a social mechanism that helps us deal with difficult situations and maintain our resilience in life. We use laughter to hide our negative emotions, such as anger and fear, and make us feel better about ourselves. In fact, laughter is the most natural form of communication, a key factor in forming strong bonds with other people. In many cases, it is our own insecurity and inability to manage our emotions that trigger laughter. When we laugh, our hearts and brains increase 10 to 20%, and our energy expenditure increases by about 10%. This increases our metabolic rate, so when we laugh for 10 to 15 minutes, we will burn as much as a packet of ready salted crisps. Open-ended questions. One of the biggest challenges facing sales teams is knowing when to follow up. Open-ended sales questions can help you gauge if you should schedule another chat or move forward. Asking questions like, "How did your team like our product?" or "When is the best time to meet again?" can also help you close more deals. Open-ended questions are the most effective way to gather information from your prospects and clients. The best way to begin a conversation is by asking a question that evokes a response from the person answering it. An open-ended question allows the other person to talk for more than you expect them to. They might mention behaviors or feelings that you were unaware of. They might share their mental models, problem-solving strategies, hopes, and fears. These are all valuable information that you might not have otherwise learned about. Closed-ended questions are used to establish credentials and customer loyalty, while open-ended questions allow the other person to do most of the talking. They're a good choice when the other person wants to pull back the curtain on themselves. They're also a good choice if you're interested in finding out more about the other person. This way, you'll have more time to explore different topics and get more information from the other person. Common interests. It can be exhausting to ask people about their common interests, especially if you're not sure if they'll answer. However, you can learn about a person's core values and personality by asking them about their common interests. In addition to letting others do most of the talking, common interests are a great way to socialize with other people and learn about their character. It can also lead to friendship or even love. If you're not sure whether you should ask someone about their favorite food or travel preferences, start by asking them about their favorite restaurants or foods. You'll be surprised at what you find out. Besides, a common interest can tell you about someone's background, education, and hobbies. You might find a perfect match just by talking about your common interests. In fact, you'll be surprised how quickly you can find someone by asking them about their favorite things. Chapter 10. C is for compassion. It's not you, it's them. Compassion and empathy. Compassion and empathy can seem alike. Compassion is the awareness of another person's experiences and an ability to understand their feelings. Empathy involves letting go of judgment and accepting others as they are. But it is important to remember that compassion and empathy are not the same. Still, both are important in dealing well with people. To practice compassion and empathy, you need to be aware of others' experiences and feel what they are feeling. Positive brain activation. There are two basic ways to activate the brain for compassion and empathy. The first involves a bottom-up information process, where perceptions and actions match. The second involves a top-down information process, in which an individual shares emotions and implicitly recognizes another person as like himself or herself. Both approaches involve the implementation of executive functions, which are the brain areas that govern emotion and cognition. Bottom-up information updates the meta level, while top-down information modifies low-level responses. The latter adds flexibility to the lower levels and reduces dependence on external cues. Neuroscience has only recently begun to investigate the neural plasticity of social emotions. To investigate the brain areas involved, researchers compared novices and experts in compassionate behavior. The experts in this field were long-time meditators, and the researchers observed that their brains were more highly activated in the middle insula after listening to an audio recording for 2 weeks. Interestingly, the results showed that empathy training enhanced the activation of these brain regions, and compassion training reduced the occurrence of negative effect. The prefrontal EEG symmetry correlates with the presence of empathy. The relationship between prefrontal EEG symmetry and the ability to feel empathy is also correlated with positive emotion. This suggests that the prefrontal cortex may play a role in mediating this relationship. Empathy and compassion have a strong relationship with prefrontal activity, and prefrontal activity is associated with higher cognitive processes of the brain. Impact on stress. A difference between compassion and empathy can reduce stress levels in humans. While empathy is a positive emotion, compassion is a beneficial trait for coping with stressful situations. Compassion helps people deal with their own distress, which is often a major cause of stress. In addition to reducing stress, compassion has other benefits as well. Contagiousness of compassion. When people feel compassion, they are more likely to adopt prosocial behaviors, such as helping others. Empathy and compassion are also related to behaviors related to public health, including wearing a mask and being vigilant about personal hygiene. However, there are still many questions about the exact contagiousness of compassion and empathy. It is important to note the extent to which compassion and empathy can be transmitted between people. There are benefits of compassion for mental health. The heightened levels of empathy and compassion for others can help the person suffering from depression and anxiety. Neuroplasticity of compassion. Compassion activates the reward and effect systems in the brain. These areas, such as the nucleus accumbens, are involved in positive emotions such as love and empathy. Among other regions, they include the ventral striatum, the middle insula, and the putamen. Compassionate responses increase activity in the striatum and periaqueductal gray. The benefits of developing compassion and empathy can be seen in patients with mental disorders. Compassion, a positive emotion, can have cascading effects that can lead to well-being. This is because compassion is an affiliative response to others. This response has been developed over centuries in Eastern philosophy and Western psychology, and certain mental training can lead to specific increases in compassion and structural changes in the neural networks related to positive emotions. Thus, exploitation of these traits could enhance psychotherapy interventions. Interestingly, the fMRI activity of the brain's regions associated with compassion and empathy was linked to increased positive effect after compassionate training. The training resulted in increased activity of a network involved in coping with stress, which reflects a new coping strategy. The deliberate cultivation of compassion and empathy can help to reinforce resilience. This provides a valuable new coping mechanism for people to cope with difficult situations. The connection between forgiveness and empathy. The connection between empathy and forgiveness is complex, and there are several factors that affect it. We look at the influence of prior experience on empathy, how gratitude influences forgiveness, and how narcissistic tendencies affect forgiveness. These factors may be useful in promoting forgiveness. We also discuss what types of empathy are beneficial in promoting forgiveness. Influence of prior experience on empathy. The effect of prior experiences on forgiveness may be more important than we realize. There is a role of empathy in forgiveness. Empathy mediates the relationship between previous experience and forgiveness. Empathy promotes forgiveness through a greater likelihood of reconstructing a relationship. Empathy is the most salient social cognitive factor in human behavior. In other words, a person who has experienced an earlier incident with an aggressor will tend to forgive a person who has had no prior experience. In addition to previous experiences, genetics and socialization can influence our empathy. Our parents pass down genes that contribute to our overall personality. Other people socialize us, and our behavior reflects the values we learned at an early age. Moreover, we also suffer from cognitive biases, such as victim blaming, which can make us less empathic. We may fail to show empathy when a victim of a crime asks us about their problems and what we could have done differently to prevent the situation. Previous experiences have a positive influence on forgiveness and empathy. In particular, prior experiences of trauma may influence a person's ability to forgive. Empathy can be a powerful tool in healing efforts, and it can help build self-esteem by empowering oneself to overcome the trauma that led to the abuse. Effects of social harmony on forgiveness. While Westerners tend to be individualistic, other cultures tend to put the needs of the group first. As a result, forgiveness is often associated with individualist motives. In contrast, cultures in Asia and Africa put the needs of the group first, and forgiveness serves as a way to ease burdens, clear consciences, and feel right about wrongs committed. This in turn preserves social harmony. For this reason, forgiveness is a fundamental aspect of human relationships. Forgiveness is a fluid concept that can change from day to day, and even hour to hour, depending on the individual's emotions. While forgiveness is an act of kindness, it is also an act of humaneness, emphasizing the humanness of the enemy. Forgiving is a valuable act that lessens the fear of the person who committed the offense. Furthermore, forgiveness also helps one learn to overcome their complicity. Ultimately, empathy and harmony may serve as protective factors against stress in the future. Effects of gratitude on forgiveness. The effects of gratitude on forgiveness and empathy are complex. Forgiving others is not merely about accepting what they did, but also about releasing attachments to the suffering of the other person. Forgiving a transgressor can be about not knowing better, wanting them to be loved, or having certain expectations. Forgiving others gives us valuable information. Gratitude is a protective factor, promoting positive functioning and reducing the risk of psychopathology. People who express gratitude report less risk of proactive aggression and reduced risks of depression and suicidal ideation. The relationship between gratitude and empathy and resilience was positive. Gratitude was found to be related to other positive psychological characteristics, such as sense of abundance and social appreciation. Gratitude has strong correlations with forgiveness. It is an emotional and behavioral response that requires more time to develop. It requires more time to regulate aversive emotions and intentions than gratitude. It may also reduce the ability to forgive, which may be detrimental to one's well-being. If the effects of gratitude are strong, it means that expressing gratitude may lead to better mental health. The positive effects of gratitude on forgiveness and empathy extend beyond interpersonal relationships. In the workplace, the effects of gratitude are correlated with self-control. Self-control is a crucial variable for moral self-schemes. It mediates the relationships between moral behavior and self-control. People with greater resilience have higher levels of gratitude. Cognitive empathy was not a significant determinant of gratitude. However, it was a significant predictor of resilience. Empathy and gratitude may represent a critical emotional skill that promotes resilience. This relationship is also mediated by age. The elderly were more likely to be grateful. So, while gratitude and resilience may have a role in strengthening relationships, both should be explored. Effects of narcissistic tendencies on forgiveness. If you've ever met a narcissist, you know how intoxicating the praise can be. They crave praise and admiration, and they're not always the best role models. While it may be tempting to rescue them, you're risking chipping away at their mental health in the process. Forgiveness and empathy are the only ways to heal from this destructive cycle. When you try to forgive a narcissist, be prepared for their cynical approach to the situation. They often exaggerate the offense and the severity of the hurt. They may have sworn or called you a foul mouth in a rare moment of frustration. Consequently, you may end up feeling that the offense is trivial or unforgivable. Forgiveness enhances our physical and psychological well-being. They also contribute to the development of character strengths and are important for cultivating forgiveness. Forgiveness has important implications for educators and parents. They need to set a good example for children to imitate. Children need role models who can demonstrate compassion and forgiveness. Forgiveness helps them develop their capacity for self-acceptance and resilience in challenging situations. Understanding the human condition. The struggle to find answers to questions is what defines the human condition. This quest can be seen in the evolution of language and its development. In addition to language, humans feel affection for animals, nature, abstract concepts, and things, and their struggle is constant. It is through the struggle for these answers that we develop our capacity for empathy and compassion. Understanding the human condition is the foundation for our ability to deal with conflict and improve our lives. Language, a key to understanding the human condition and behavior, is language. Languages help us understand certain behaviors and cultures. For instance, the language we use in conversations may not be understood by a non-native speaker. In order to understand language and human behavior, we must first understand the way in which it works. The quest to understand the human condition began with the first attempts by humans to know themselves and their place in the universe. Since different cultures treat the subject differently, this quest for knowledge has become a central part of literature, art, and drama. Feeling affection for people, animals, nature, things, and abstract concepts We've all been taught that feelings of affection towards humans are rooted in the parental responses we experience. But is this really true? Is it possible that we have feelings of affection for animals as well? Theorists like Conrad Lawrence have said that humans are drawn to animals that have characteristics of an infant. The term neoteny, or retaining infant-like traits, is used to describe the phenomenon. Conflict. Theories of conflict focus on the causes of human conflict, relating it to our basic wiring. However, these theories tend to look at the human condition through highly humanistic and tragic lenses. Humans are social animals, and they seek to fit in with the group they belong to. The sources of conflict are many, and the circumstances for starting them are many. To accept that there is no way to prevent conflict is short-sighted, because it requires far more energy and effort to maintain peaceful coexistence. Conflicts have two main sources, destruction and repair. As we can see, the latter is better for the human condition. So, we can understand what triggers conflict in a more constructive way, and work toward a peaceful resolution. Religion. While there is a wide variety of religious traditions, one can find many similarities in the study of religion and understanding the human condition. Religion and science often overlap, and both use the terms good and evil as well as religious references in their discussions. Regardless of the differences in the two fields, a basic understanding of the human condition can help us address some of the most difficult questions of life. Philosophers sought to prove that humans participate in a spiritual realm and relate to the world in ways that differ from those of other living creatures. Philosophers such as Friedrich Nietzsche, Hans Blumenberg, and Pannenberg attempted to integrate the scientific and the humanistic insights into one system. There are widespread beliefs in an afterlife and an innate tendency to infer that natural phenomena have some sort of purpose. All of these attempts to understand the human condition is a way to show that each and every person experiences some sort of struggle in their life. And in many ways, this struggle is what united the race of humanity. This human struggle creates a tendency for humans to have empathy and compassion for one another, perhaps not just as a survival mechanism, but also as a pervasive truth that we are all somehow connected. This perception of unity may transcend the notion that dealing with difficult people may mean that we are ultimately dealing with ourselves.